Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Lineker. Let's make history today as we go over Unit 2, Day 2. And let's get started with our daily punishment. My friend drove his expensive car into a tree and found out how his Mercedes Benz. Key terms for today: Treaty of Westphalia, constitutional monarchy, absolute monarchy / absolutism, Charles V, Louis XIV, mercantilism, War of the Roses, Prussia, and the divine rights of kings. We're going to talk about political developments in Western Europe during the early modern period. We talked about the Treaty of Westphalia last video. It ended the 30-Year War. It allowed the king to decide the religion of his subjects. Specifically, they could either choose Roman Catholicism or Lutheranism. During this time, the Italian city-states will flourish with industries and trade. The Italian city-states will be trading with the Muslim world for the spices, so they kind of dominate Middle Eastern Islamic trade, which will make them very wealthy at this time. France and England had just fought the 100-Year War. England is going to have a civil war called the War of the Roses, which will lead to the rise of the Tudor dynasty and Henry VII, and eventually Henry VIII. Spain will become reunited under the Reconquista. They'll push the Muslims out of Spain. They'll force the Muslims to either convert to Roman Catholicism and the Jews, or to be kicked out. There'll be competition between European states, and you'll see dynastic politics, where the kings will marry with princesses from other countries to create alliances and to get land for dowries for political advantages. Charles V was the Holy Roman Emperor. He was also the King of Spain. He had the Spanish-American territory, the Americas, and the Philippines. He had one of the largest empires in the history of the world. However, he was never able to establish unified rule. He's going to have disputes with his nobles. The Protestant Reformation happens under his rule. He's going to have problems with France, who was a rival with him. France will support the Protestants, and he'll fight against the Ottoman Turks and the Muslims. Constitutional monarchy is seen in countries like England and the Netherlands. It's characterized by the king is limited by a constitution, like a Bill of Rights convention. For example, the Magna Carta, which was in England in 1215, which limited the power of the king. The English Bill of Rights, which happened after the Glorious Revolution, which protected certain individual rights. Also, in a constitutional monarchy, usually there's capitalism, there's a large middle class, mercantile class, and there's usually a legislative branch, which, like separation of powers, it limits the power of the king. In England, they have parliament. Another example is absolutism or absolute monarchy. You see that in countries like France, Spain, Austria, and Prussia. This is based on the theory of divine rights of kings. The idea of divine rights of kings is that the power to rule comes from God. So if you're rebelling against the king, you're really rebelling against the G-man. In mercantilism, in absolutism, they're going to have a mercantile system of economic theory. In capitalism, the government is not involved in the economy, and people are able to create their own businesses. There's free trade. That was for constitutional monarchies. For absolute monarchies, they have mercantilism. In mercantilism, the government heavily taxes trade. They want you to trade with the mother country. They put tariffs to prevent you from trading with other countries, and it's more government-controlled economy. Examples of mercantilism are things like in the Stamp Act and the Tea Act. One of the famous rulers during this time was Cardinal Richelieu. He was the regent of France before Louis XIV came of age. He's all about realpolitik, and even though he was a Catholic cardinal, he'll ally with the Protestants to make France stronger. In the 1600s, Prussia is going to become a major power in Europe. They're going to start to become stronger. They're not as strong as France or Spain or anything, but they're going to start to become stronger. Prussia is the main state in Germany. They're very militaristic and had a strong army. And Prussia is going to start slowly conquering land and taking over other German states, which will take about 200 years before they unite all of Germany together into one country. At this time, Germany is like hundreds of tiny little states. It's not united. We're going to talk about Louis XIV of France. He is the quintessential absolute monarch. He was called the Sun King because the world revolved around him. He created a palace in Versailles, which was the model of absolutism. He would have his nobles go there and just wait on him. Nobles are going to lose power at this time, and they're going to be reliant upon the king's largesse for his power. Louis XIV will create a large professional standing army. He'll have a series of wars in Europe during this time. In England and the Netherlands and Portugal will create alliances to go to war against Louis XIV in France. Louis XIV will support mercantilism. He'll also create colonies in places like Canada, Quebec. In mercantilism, colonies support the mother country, and wealth is based on the metals. So you want to have a lot of gold, silver, and the colonies' whole job is providing raw resources for the mother country. Mercantilism is going to be a big reason why different colonies rebel when we get to next unit. All right, guys, that's all I have for you for today. Until next time, deuces. Deuces, deuces.